My idea behind these pep talks is to give you a pep talk on flying. It is as simple as that. I travel quite a bit and therefore I have quite a bit of footage. And also I'm sharing the details from what I'm finding. So like for example here at Thessaloniki airport, for once they had samples that were interesting to buy when it comes to perfumes. Could also be other interesting details like at Arlanda airport in Stockholm, finally something fun, so Swiss army knives made of chocolate. Or again, Thessaloniki, which are selling vintage bags at the airport. Loved it. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but then I haven't visited every airport in Europe. I also liked Thessaloniki because they seemed quite gift-oriented. So if I were to gift many friends and family members leaving this airport, I would definitely give them a lot of food. There were olives, there were all kinds of different products which you would say are local. I don't know how good they are in their taste, but there was quite an abundance and I really like that. Then, of course, we have the curiosity aspect. I really like finding out about how airports really work. The planning, the logistics, how everything is coordinated. Super interesting and can be very well done. And also getting to know the different professions connected to an airport as well to an airplane. Sometimes I ask pilots questions. I try to be nice, of course, because I understand that just them walking down an aisle doesn't mean that they're available for questions at all times. One pilot said that they usually only visit 2 countries per day. I said 2? I thought 5. He said, oh please, don't give the planners any ideas. In addition, we of course also have all the meteorological facts, things that happen in the sky. What do we actually see when we look out through the window? A particular type and shape of a cloud could be telling a lot about what is going on. And seeing that really up close, in a way that you cannot when you're standing on the ground, is very amazing to me. And of course, I want to share the different interesting details related to what is known today to researchers, and just also be inspired in general by the fact that we are in the sky, which is a lot of engineering hours combined. Of course, there is also the aspect of how aircrafts are designed. So they can be huge and be transporting parts of, for example, what will be connected together and become a windmill. And that is quite demanding for the space. Naturally, having started this series, I'm constantly on the lookout for new interesting information to share. It could be what is transported and how. And that is how I came across an article in Dagens Nyheter, the news of today, as it is translated, where there was an article about 1 month ago about how to transplant a heart. I had never thought about this before, and it of course all makes sense now when I know more about this process. There is a particular team at Sahlgrenska Hospital in Gothenburg, and the journalist and the photographer that were allowed to participate in the process had to sign, of course, many confidentiality agreements, and they had different talks about how this could be best done. Of course, the hospital read through this article to make sure that no details that were mentioned would reveal any patient identity. So what happens is that when you want to transplant a heart, you only have 4 hours to do so. If the receiver of the heart gets it after 4 hours, it will not function as it should. So to have this process covered as efficiently as possible, there is a coordinator at the hospital calling everyone and preparing everyone for this process to be as smooth as possible. And as soon as this heart begins its journey to its receiver, it has to be put in a particular shock-absorbing container, and the ice inside mustn't be sharp. That is very crucial. And as soon as this transport process begins, those 4 hours are counting down. In the article, they were transporting the heart from Stockholm to Iceland, and just the journey by flight itself takes 3 hours. So for this particular, I call them rescue team, they don't have to do any check-in. They already have all the security cleared, so they can just drive right into the airport and get into the airplane and take off super fast just to have this heart on place. And that is very cool. And of course, as the journalist mentions in the article, very few people want to change their job once they've come to that department in the hospital. And And this process, of course, has been tested in so many ways. And this is another aspect of science, which I find just amazing. Of course, I'm also sharing other stories that happened in the air or that come from conversations I had with people around me, which I think are fun to share. This is semi-fun, but a colleague of mine was claiming that the best food ever is the one served in an aircraft. And everybody looked at that person. You're not traveling first class, are you? No, I love the food that you're getting. And we all couldn't agree, disagree more. And to tell you the truth, if I see someone who needs extra support while traveling, I have no problems whatsoever to reach out my hand and said, if you want to hold it, please do. Support is very easy to offer. I also volunteer happily if I see someone who would prefer having them seated next by me for pep talks on, for example, what we see through the window when we are flying. And the cloud formations are actually unique. We will never see the exactly same formations ever again. That is quite special. Then, of course, I cannot film it all, but I certainly know how to enjoy a good view. And speaking of enjoying, this really silly trend that has been mentioned now in the medias for I think about half a year is that people have come up with this not so great idea to try to not stimuli themselves in any way. So even if you have a transatlantic flight which can last for 16, 17 hours, the challenge is to not get out of your seat and to do literally nothing. You're not reading, you're not holding your phone, you're not getting any entertainment, and some people have done even the extreme version of not visiting the restroom throughout that entire time. And basically they stare at the seat in front of them. Those 16 or 17 hours can be used in so much better ways. That's my opinion on this trend. And for that matter, people that follow this trend, they also don't eat during the entire journey. And maybe that is not a very good idea. And if you haven't recalled the name yet, or maybe you do know the name, this trend is called raw dogging. Like raw, not cooked, and dogging like dog. Or this story. There's a YouTuber who tried to own his own aircraft company and came to the realization that all the papers needed, it's a process of about 10 years. So trying to skip ahead in the system, he decided to apply for the possibility to put his own name on the aircraft. And the company was happy to do so. So I think legally for, is it 10 minutes, maybe less? And I think he had to pay £75,000 for the matter. He got to make one tour, and during that tour, which is just flying shortly above London, that aircraft bore his name, which meant that it was his for a short while. Interesting story. I wouldn't repeat it myself, but fun to share. This channel is also a great possibility to debunk some myths. So, an older person in my circles was claiming that when you flush in the restroom in the aircraft, everything is just being thrown out in the air. And I walked up to an air hostess and said, I heard this rumor, and could you please tell me that this is not true? And she laughed at this. She said, of course not. And she actually invited me, so to speak, backstage. Her colleague actually encouraged her, saying, do show her. And what they showed me was a screen which keeps the staff up to date on when it's time to empty the restrooms. And how you do the calculations is that a tour which takes about, is it 4 hours roughly, from Stockholm to Tenerife, that's usually one flight that will perfectly accommodate the needs of all the passengers, and after that the restroom has to be emptied. So not necessarily in liters, but in passengers and hours. And this is shown as a graphics on a display, which is very easy to read, and it's just behind the loo. While I am on the lookout for more interesting information to share, I also came across a couple of ads where something was sold, sometimes a landing and starting place like a small airport by itself, but sometimes also houses have their own landing runway. And the last one I saw, which was just a week ago, it was a long tray of grass, so even not asphalted, no cement. So I guess they don't land very often, but when they have the need, you can take your very, very small aircraft for 2 people. And this reminds me of a colleague actually telling me she flew a very small aircraft from northern Sweden. And when she did, she had to place herself in a particular way, and they had to also put the baggage in a particular way to know the exact balance of the aircraft. So very interesting to know that also very small aircrafts exist, and it's possible to have your own runway without bigger costs. So there you have it, the story behind this pep talk series that I created on my channel, which is actually turning 1 year soon, and the pep talks are about as old. If you know someone who would benefit from such a pep talk, with the details that I'm sharing and just commenting on how we are finding ourselves in the air, do share, and I hope that they will enjoy this smooth, calming voice, though sometimes I do talk a bit fast, and that I can keep on sharing information with you, which I think is interesting when it comes to flying. See you in the next video.